very, very pleased to host Dr. Tuttle to speak at Google today. Dr. Tuttle is the author of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The World Peace Diet. He's an educator, composer, pianist, and a writer. He's a peace activist and a vegan for over 30 years, and he's the recipient of the Courage of Conscience Award. He has a PhD from UC Berkeley, focusing on educating intuition and altruism. He's a creator of the World Peace Diet Mastery and Facilitator Training Program. He has taught college courses in philosophy, humanities, mythology, and comparative religion. He's a former Zen monk, Dharma master in the Korean Zen tradition. He's a co-founder of the worldwide Prayer Circle for Animals. He's currently conducting a music, art, and education ministry with his spouse, Madeline Tuttle, who is a visionary artist from Switzerland. She has her animal paintings. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Will Tuttle.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming and
welcome.
Speaking and for your work. My question is, why veganism, in a sense that why does one have to go that far to break free of the lack of consciousness in the current system? So there have been cultures for thousands of years that hunted animals but did not inflict the kinds of harm that are caused by modern day agribusiness. I've heard of Native American practices of saying a prayer and asking forgiveness from an animal that they had hunted, which has a degree of consciousness to it, which may not be as nonviolent. There are some people who actually require animal protein for particular reasons.
Most of all of those are addressed in the World Peace Diet. Basically, I would say, veganism to me is a mentality of radical inclusion. It's saying I'm going to include all living beings within the sphere of my kindness and compassion. And it's also, I think, in many ways coming home to our essential true nature, where I look with eyes that see beings rather than seeing things. Anything less than that, I mean, it's an ideal. It's a very high ideal. It's the goal to move toward. I think there's people, we can be living on the outer level of a totally vegan life, like no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no going to the zoo, no going to the circus, no buying leather, all these things. But still I get angry with people or I judge them or whatever. That's still not vegan. The idea is really, I think, at a very sophisticated level, in a sense, to evolve emotionally and intellectually and spiritually to the point where we're living a life as much as possible of kindness and compassion. So I think that there maybe have been other cultures in the past that did certain things. I'm not sure. We don't know what happened on 9/11. I don't know. We're not sure. There's so many arguments about what happened 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. People said that people ate a lot of meat in the old days, and that there may be some truth to that. But we thought we're mostly eating meat. We're not eating mostly meat. They were actually eating mostly plant-based foods. And whether there's a necessity to eat meat, I don't think that's true. I mean, I've talked to a lot of doctors and researchers who disagree with that there's any human being on this planet that needs to eat meat for any reason. There's nothing animals do not contribute any nutrient that they didn't get from plants originally. All the amino acids, all the vitamins, minerals, fiber, essential fatty acids, carbohydrates, it all originates with plants. They are the one, the only two exceptions of that we're aware of at this point are vitamin D, which is essentially from the sun, and vitamin B12, which is created by bacteria, which we would get in the water, but since we chlorinate it and kill all the bacteria, and perhaps also through foods. We have to realize that the placebo effect is very powerful. I mean, what our minds believe will be the reality. But I think we should, instead of looking at the past to determine our behavior, why don't we look at the future, see the kind of world we want to build, and move forward, move toward that. We can feed everyone on a plant-based diet on a fraction of the land. There's these certain standard objections that just keep our Sophia repressed. Have you heard of Joseph Campbell, the well-known mythologist? He gave a fascinating series of interviews to Bill Moyer back in the 80s. He used to teach college classes in mythology, and I read a lot of Campbell's books. But at one point, Bill Moyer asked him, he said, "So, Joseph, human beings seem to be the myth-creating animal. We create myths. We create these stories that tell us how things happened and why they happened and all of that. What is the main reason? If you could say, what is one main reason that human beings create myths, what would it be?" Thanks again. Thanks for coming.